Welcome to TIPS. Our president is Peter Steimel, and I am Matthew Conklin, the VP of Business Development. Between us, we've had experience with feed studies in multiple industries. We've both led large automation projects. We have experience with the vendors such as Honeywell and Emerson, and also the large independent system integrators that execute projects such as Mustang and Maverick. So TIPS really has a unique combination of experience to help you get the most out of your automation project. So this video will talk about 3 topics of feed studies: why you should have one, what the deliverables are, and finally the benefits of a feed study. So why do a feed study? Before we get into why do a feed study, let's talk a little bit about what a feed study is. So first of all, for those that may not know, FEED is an acronym for Front-End Engineering Design. And if you hear the word FEL, that's front-end loading. And so these are generic terms across the industry, and they can mean different things to different people. So that's the reason you always need to ask. But for TIPS, we provide a feed that can be broken down into 3 separate FEL phases, or you could do them all in one. But the first is an FEL1, plus or minus 30% budgetary estimate, sometimes known as a feasibility study. The second is a FEL2, plus or minus 20% conceptual estimate. Sometimes this is where the control system platform is selected. And then finally, FEL3 is a plus or minus 10% detailed estimate, and delivers a detailed scope, functional requirement spec that an integrator or the vendor can program from, and the bid package delivered. So that's a feed study in FEL 1, 2, and 3. So now that we've covered what a feed study is, this really gets into why a feed study. So notice the main message of this is that upfront engineering pays for itself. So notice the brown line, that's your ability to influence cost and risk. And the blue line is the actual cost of the different stages of the project. So notice at the beginning, your ability is very high when you're defining the scope, and still high, but a little lower in conceptual engineering. But once you get in design, implementation, and startup, that ability to influence cost and risk gets lower, and of course, cost exponentially increases. So the more money you put into the upfront design, the more value you'll get out of your automation project. So just remember this chart. This is why you want to do a feed study, because the study pays for itself early. Now, if you're convinced you want to do a feed study, you may ask, why utilize outside consultants? Why not just do it with our own people? Well, typically the plant engineers, if you're running things properly, they're highly utilized. They don't have the time to do a feed study. Your feed study may encompass multiple sites. It really needs full attention, so that's why you want to bring in outside consultants, and it needs to be unbiased. You don't want the vendors that make the software, the valves, the transmitters, and everything involved to tell you what you need. You need an outside that hopefully has experience of the vendors, but not the bias. They no longer work there. That's important. And also remember, time is money. You don't want this thing to drag out over 5 years. You will hope to get a large feed study done in no longer than 6 months. So now let's talk about the deliverables of a feed study. What do you get for your money? Now, feed studies are here to help you make a decision about your automation investments. It should include the net present value, or NPV. Amy Gao, the Harvard Business Review, says, in fact, net present value is the model that Warren Buffett uses to evaluate companies. Rosemary Peveler, Biz Finance, says, net present value is a capital budgeting method that is likely the most correct capital budgeting method that business owners can use in evaluating whether to invest or not invest in a new capital project. So NPV is an indicator of how much value an investment or project adds to the firm. And NPV is determined by calculating the cost, negative cash flows, and benefits, positive cash flows for each period of investment. And that's very important. And NPV, unlike other methods, takes into time value of money, and it also accounts for the different rates of return. Say you have 10 different units and you're trying to figure out which one to migrate first. Knowing the net NPV of each unit will help you make that correct decision. So here's an example of a TIPS feed report. So you have all the data. You may have databases, Excel spreadsheets, a Microsoft Word report, but really this is the one pager that you can take to your managers to get approval for a project. And notice it has the net present value, which also does include the payback period and your value over a period of months, and say this is for a $2.7 million investment. You take into account for the unit the currently monthly profit and loss statement, and then also as a result of the project what the improved monthly P&L is going to be. And also the intangibles that you can't necessarily put money on. What are the worst violators of the past 5-10 years on safety recordables or environmental excursions? You at least document those in the feed study and then show what the automation project is going to do to reduce the risk or solve those problems. So you really need a feed study you can stand on. Some integrators will do feed studies and only give you the one option they thought was the most recommended, but TIPS will actually give you three. We'll give you that second and third because maybe what we feel isn't, and maybe conditions change after we deliver the report. So we'll give you the three options for you to evaluate, and with our recommended as the top. Define the schedule, benefits, quality, and risk, and it'll be control system independent and not vendor biased. And that's another important reason you want to get TIPS as opposed to a vendor for a feed study. Now let's look at the last category, feed benefits, what you get for a feed study. One of the primary benefits you get with a feed study is information is power. Pretend you needed a brand new pickup truck for some reason, and you go to the Chevy dealership and you don't do any research and you say, my grandfather had a Chevy pickup, my dad had a Chevy pickup, and by gosh, I want a Chevy pickup. And spare no expense, just tell me what you can give me. Well, then you're going to get the price that's on the sticker on that truck. You're going to get the highest possible price. But now let's say you do a little bit of research and you consider other options. Say you really did want a Chevy, but you still need to have the options because remember, information is power. So now you go in there and you say, look, I know how much a Chevy Silverado costs, a F-150, a Dodge Ram. I know with the horsepower, the fuel economy, the safety rating. Now, GM, I need you to tell me why I should buy a Chevy pickup. I need you to work with me. What can you do on price? What can you do on options? What are the options I didn't know about? And now you're going to get a much better price. You may get more features, and the information is power. So automation projects aren't that much different than buying a pickup truck or any other investment you might make, a large purchase. With the DCS feed study is your information, that is your power. So now you can go to, say, 3 automation vendors and you can say, look, I know how many I/O I need, what features I need. You tell me what the best price is and why your software is the best for me, and let them give you the options. And so if TIPS did the FEL1 for you and that becomes your bid package, then what the vendors come back with, TIPS can finish up with the FEL2 and 3 and help you evaluate the net present value of the best investment for you in your plant. So we hope you've enjoyed this video, and please, if you have any questions, contact us. And remember what you get for a feed study, the net present value, the best decision making, even the intangibles, the safety risk matrix, the environmental risk matrix, something quick that you can communicate to the financial people to help you get your projects approved and to make good, solid decisions. So we thank you for your time. And again, Pete Stommel is our president. I'm Matthew Conk, the VP of Business Development. Feel free to visit our website, email us, or give us a call, and we'd love to hear from you. And thank you again.